Back in January 2019, barrister and climate change activist Zali Steggall formally announced she would run as an independent in the Sydney seat of Warringah, then held by former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. This is part of what she said at her campaign launch.
We can't let coal companies and lobbyists buy their way into our government.
Well, guess what? As the Sydney Morning Herald reported today, climate and integrity crusading independent federal MP Zali Steggall failed to disclose a six-figure political donation from the family trust of a multi-millionaire coal investor who is accused of tax fraud for almost 2 years. And an audit of her campaign financing has found an Australian Electoral Commission compliance review into Warringah Independent Limited's 2018-2019 disclosures uncovered that a $100,000 cheque from the Kinghorn Family Trust, headed by prominent businessman John Kinghorn, had not been made public, even though it exceeded the disclosure threshold. Steggall had a war chest of $1.1 million to fund her successful campaign to wrest Warringah from Tony Abbott. And this $100,000 donation from the Kinghorn Family Trust was the largest single donation she received. The disclosure threshold for the 2019 federal election was $13,800. As the newspaper also noted, the full amount of the Kinghorn donation had been split into 8 separate donations of $12,500 from Kinghorn family members, each of them falling under the minimum amount required to be disclosed. Interesting. This practice is known as donation splitting, a sham arrangement to conceal large payments under the threshold. The donation was made in March 2019, 2 months before the election, in the form of a money transfer from the Kinghorn Family Trust to the fundraising group Warringah Independent Limited. The financial controller of the recipient entity at the time was Damien Hodgkinson, who, as the newspaper noted, is now a director and shareholder of Climate 200 Proprietary Limited, the campaign led by Simon Holmes à Court to fund climate-focused independence across the country. Now, this donation was not included as required by the Electoral Act in Warringah Independent's 2018-19 annual return, lodged in October of 2019. It was finally lodged in a second amended return in February 2021, after the AEC audit. It's fair to say that Steggall, a climate crusader, is very much feeling the heat at the moment. Releasing a statement today via social media, she said, "Let's get the facts straight. There was no undisclosed money received by my campaign. The headline in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age was misleading. The headline claims Zali Steggall failed to declare the donation from a family trust. This is incorrect. All amounts received were disclosed in accordance with the requirement. In November 2019, my campaign received over 1,700 individual donations for the 2019 election. I received 8 individual pledges from a large family living in my electorate. The AEC later considered it to be one single donation, so the return was amended in 2021 to reflect that. The money donated was at all times disclosed. These are donations from a number of members of a large family who nearly all live in Warringah. If you ruled out taking donations from anyone who has invested in coal at one time or another, you pretty much rule out everyone, as most people have through their superannuation. What is important is for people to now turn away from fossil fuel investment and support Australia's transition to clean energy and support MPs with solutions. Let's get the facts straight. Zali Steggall, as lawyer and commentator Caroline De Rosso tweeted, "The pertinent point missed in this statement is, as reported, that a single $100,000 cheque was provided to cover the 8 donations. The fact the family live in the electorate is irrelevant. All that's missing is an Aldi bag." Only a few months ago, Steggall was purporting to be the queen of electoral virtue. This was her last October, voicing her support for a private members' bill to reform the reporting of political donations.
This bill will increase transparency of political donations by reducing the threshold for disclosure of political donations from $14,500 to $1,000 and increasing the reporting frequency to every quarter for $1,000 donations and above. I welcome these changes. For too long, money has been hidden from view and from public scrutiny. We do not know who is paying for access to politicians and members in this place and influence over decisions.
And only this month, Steggall had the hide to tweet, government and Labor partnered to crack down on the independent movement and charities in the name of transparency and integrity. Meanwhile, they got $2 million in donations from fossil fuel companies and over $46 million dark money from hidden sources. Can you see why we need independence? Well, put it this way, Zali Steggall, I can't see why we need independents who are contributing to this problem, yet who preen about the need for integrity and reform. That's gross hypocrisy, particularly given you're an officer of the court. And don't insult our intelligence by insisting your office wasn't trying to hide this donation. Also, isn't it a contradiction to purport to be as pure as snow, yet take money from a fund headed by a man charged with fraud and avoiding $30 million in taxes, especially given it was already before the courts 2 years prior to you receiving the donation in question? Remind us, what was it you said in your maiden speech?
I firmly believe that we are all, as individuals, accountable for our decisions and actions. Trust in Australian politicians is at its lowest in a decade, and we can only reach our potential as a democracy if we believe in our institutions. As in sport, there can only be respect if you're playing by the rules. In researching and reading many of this Parliament's members' first speeches, I was struck by how many grand statements and ideals are first made, but then seem to disappear in the polarisation of party partisanship.
You're not wrong, and there's no better example of that than the member for Warringah.